Hello, my brothers and sisters in the Lord. I'm Father Joe here at St. Joseph's Parish in Elko, Nevada. I want to begin by wishing you all a happy LOTR Sunday, or happy Be Joyful Sunday. This is the fourth Sunday of Lent, and it marks kind of the midway point during the season of Lent as we approach Easter and the resurrection of the Lord. I also want to apologize for the tardiness of this video. I was hoping to get it up this morning before our usual Mass times. However, due to some technical difficulties, I don't think this is going to get up until about 3 o'clock this afternoon, so I apologize for that. Now, I want to begin with somewhat of a disclaimer. This is going to be a slightly less formal than my usual homilies. I'm going to treat this as though it's a reflection of me sharing my thoughts about our gospel reading and also about what's kind of going on. So this video is going to be very much so my personal reflections and my grappling with the gospel. I'm planning on making another video, hopefully that will get up this afternoon as well. That's going to be more exegetical. It'll be looking at the passage itself and trying to understand and break apart what St. John is trying to tell us. That said, this is going to be somewhat odd. And I apologize for about the next 2 minutes because I'm going to become very much so a nerd. So if you want to skip ahead, feel free. I don't mind that at all. But during my time in this sort of pseudo-cloister, I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks, specifically The Lord of the Rings. And I've kind of begun to see everything through the lens of this great novel. And this is also important for looking at our gospel reading. And I think J.R.R. Tolkien has a lot of very good spiritual insights because I would say the entirety of The Lord of the Rings, as well as a lot of the Silmarillion, is grappling with the first paragraph of our gospel. So I'm going to read our first gospel so you kind of know what I'm talking about. Then I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent, and I promise I will bring it back. So the first paragraph from the Gospel of John. This is from chapter 9 of the Gospel of John. I would highly recommend reading the entirety of that chapter just so you get the whole story. But this is the first paragraph. Jesus is just coming out of the temple. As he passed by, he saw a man blind from birth. And his disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Jesus answered, "It was not that this man sinned, nor his parents, but that the works of God might be made manifest in him." I found this particularly interesting and profound. And now time for a little bit of The Lord of the Rings. In The Lord of the Rings, there's this place in which all of the sort of angels or archangels dwell, named the Valar. One of the Valar is named Nynya. She is the Valar of sorrow. She spends her time weeping and mourning. She lives outside of the Halls of Mandos, the Halls of Weeping, the place where the elves go to die. And Nynya is very important for understanding what's happening in The Lord of the Rings. Nynya is constantly mourning, constantly weeping. But as Tolkien points out, Nynya takes sorrow and turns it to pity and to wisdom. This pity and wisdom is the hallmark of all The Lord of the Rings. The greatest student, the greatest pupil of Nynya is actually Gandalf himself. And in the story, Gandalf teaches Frodo about the importance of pity, the importance of wisdom, specifically with the story of Gollum. Frodo says to Gandalf, "It's a pity that Bilbo didn't kill him when he had the chance." Gandalf then turns to him and says, "Pity. Pity was what stayed his hand." And Gollum becomes the sort of character who's attempting to go down the path of redemption but ultimately fails. However, the pity of Bilbo and the pity of Frodo ultimately lead to salvation, because at the end of the story, Gollum bites off the ring of power from Frodo's finger and in his exuberance falls down into the pits of Mordor. It was the pity of Frodo and Bilbo towards Gollum that they learned from Gandalf, that they learned from Nynya, that enabled them to achieve the salvation that they all wished for. It was the pity and the wisdom that was learned through sorrow. And so now I'm reminded of Stephen Colbert's paraphrasing of J.R.R. Tolkien. Are not all of God's punishments also gifts? Are not all of God's punishments also gifts? Because it is in the moments of sorrow, in the moments where our hearts are most deeply broken, that we learn how to pity others, that we learn true wisdom, and able to look at things as they truly are. Turning to our gospel, Jesus looks at this man who is born blind, and he looks upon him with pity. He doesn't say that the evil that he's undergone, namely the blindness, is something that is a result of sin itself, but as something that will make manifest the works of God. Again, to quote Stephen Colbert, the thing I have come to love, the thing that I wish most had not happened. He was talking about the death of his father and a couple of his brothers. But it is through sorrow that we learn wisdom. It's through sorrow, through blindness, that we're able to truly see the light. That's the story of the man born blind. The evils in his life did not define him, but gave him a wisdom beyond that of the Pharisees and the scribes, so that he could truly see Jesus when he was in his presence. Are not all of God's punishments also gifts? And on that happy note, my brothers and sisters, I'll leave this reflection. I hope that you all stay safe, and may God bless you and keep you.